Greeting everybody, I'm Chris. I am part of the 3D cookie cutter group, and I wanted to go ahead and get this long overdue video done for everybody of how we make cookie cutters. Again, I don't sell the cookie cutters that I make, but the cookie cutters I have made are very durable, and most importantly, they're simple to make. I like to keep things simple in the stuff that I do, especially in Fusion. You can make them as advanced as you want, but this is just kind of an overview of how Fusion works as far as cookie cutters, and just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a foundation, so that way you can design your own as you go forward. Again, I do ramble a little bit. Please, I do apologize for that. It's just in my nature. Please feel free if you guys have any questions or anything. I'll try to answer them the best I can. Again, I'm no expert on this, but I've gotten pretty good with making cookie cutters at least. I'm also designing some other devices and parts and stuff. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to show you the origin first. So if you look at it, and I'll move this over, right, you have your 3D origin according to X, Y, and Z axis, right? But you know what we want? We want red and green is what we want. So we're gonna go ahead and design on the front, okay? And this is all gonna make sense here in a moment. So you can sketch on, and the reason why we use this orientation, the red and the green lines, is because this will send it with the correct orientation to your slicer. All right, so you don't have to worry about rotating across axes or anything like that. So just remember, red and green, Christmas, or whatever else red and green is. So we're going to go ahead and go forward, and I'm just going to show you a quick, I'm going to show you what sketching does, because you can either sketch on a plane or a face, or you, so I just kind of want to explain that to you just a little bit, because if you don't have a reference, it's kind of, I mean, they're just words, right? So I'm just going to do something really simple here. I am going to first I'm going to do a sketch, and it's going to ask me which select a planar or planar face, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to click on the red and green right here. This is what I do, and I hit that, right? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make a sketch. This is just going to be a simple rectangle, right? So we're going to do 80 by 30. You hit tab to go through everything if you want to make it a certain size. And this is this sketch aspect right here. When you do this rectangle, I'm going to show you a trick a little bit later, and we're going to turn into construction lines. But right now we want it as a sketch line. Okay, we don't want construction. Construction lines are reference lines, and they help with a couple different things. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter. Okay. And so see what that did is that made a little box, right? And this box here is a closed loop because it creates this pink in the center. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit, what's very important while you're doing these things is to learn the keyboard shortcuts. See where E has extrude here, H for hole and stuff like that. You're not going to really use the H or anything. E is your extrusion, and this explains what it does. It adds depth to the sketch, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make this sketch into a 3D object, okay? So right now, this was just me sketching on the plane, okay? So what we're going to do is instead of hitting that button, we're going to get in the good habit of learning our keyboard shortcuts. We're going to hit the E button, right? We're going to select, first of all, we're going to stop, we're going to hit the E button, all right? So, and then we're going to select the closed sketch, right? And then I'm going to tilt this up just a titch, and you're going to see how this works. Okay, so we're going to go up. All right, we're going to go up. Let's go up, yeah, 45. Enter. All right, so that being said, we now have a 3D object now from that sketch, right? So the reason why I wanted to show you this is that it's going to help out in the long run because you're going to understand the differences in the sketches, okay? So basically, we'll just say this is a part and I needed to, you know, add another extrusion onto that extrusion, right? So what you would do is I would just do like, let's go with the center diameter circle, and we'll put it right there. We're sketching on that face now. See how I selected that face? So then what I would do is I would just go out, 20 looks great. All right, I'd select that and then I'd hit the E button and then I can stretch it out and see what that does. That makes it so you could sketch on the face. You could even go the other way if you wanted to and put a hole in it. There's actually better ways to do that with constraints, but we're not going to go into that for right now. So there you go. There is an item extruded on an item. I drew on both the plane and the, oh, that kind of looks like Thor's hammer. Huh, look at me go. All right, anyways. All right, so we are going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and delete this and check out what happens when you delete it. And we're going to hit don't save. Oh, look, another page pops up. All right, so now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the actual cookie cutter designing. So what I'm going to do is I am going to kick back on my origin because it shows me three-dimensionally where everything's at, right? And as I said before, we always use red and green. Red and green will keep it, again, at the correct orientation for your program, okay, for your slicing. So you don't have to do any rotation or anything like that, because sometimes that even makes my head swim. Sometimes I'm like, which way is this rotating? I have to really think about it, you know. That just shows you all the origins. You can cut them in and out as needed. But I always like to leave origin on, at least in the beginning. If you're not used to using red and green, I just select red and green. It gives other people visual. It depends on how you learn, you know, kinetic or visual or auditory. So what we're going to do now is we are going to insert what we're going to trace. Again, I just picked a piece of clip art that looked like it was open source. I'm not quite sure. Again, I am not doing this for any amount of profit, mind you. So I just kind of wanted to, you know, just show you guys just as a demonstration. So basically what I did now is I selected a plane, right? You could actually select any plane you wanted, really. So face, we could delete that right there, and I could have done it across the green and blue, or the red and blue, or the green and red. So I'm again gonna pick green and red. All right. So you see how it's kind of oriented, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the front. We're going to click front because you can see where that's at, and it will put it exactly where it needs to be. All right, so now what we are going to do is we are going to make this the correct size. And as I said before, each square, I have it constrained. If you guys remember, or I might not have done it on this one. I've done a couple different renditions of this. I do apologize. That I have all my settings set up to 10 millimeters. All my squares set up to 10 millimeters. I keep it fixed. Adaptive means that the scale always changes according to whatever, right? And I think it's better if it's constrained, so that way you could look at it, and it's kind of like looking at it, and it's like a ruler there, right? You know, each square is 1 centimeter. So again, so let's go ahead and go back to the canvas. All right, and we are going to edit the canvas. All right, because we got to make it bigger, right? So we're going to make it roughly about 80 millimeters. It's nice there in the center. I guess I picked a good one as far as it's being centered. All right, so that's about 40, right? Technically, that's about 60. And we are just going to go a little bit more out and make it about 80. All right, we're going to hit enter. All right, so this is now what we're going to be tracing, okay? And again, or if you want to sketch or whatever, it always helps to like set up a sketch and then trace it, right? For those of you who can draw, those of us who cannot draw, we Photoshop. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the actual tracing of this airplane. All right, we'll call it a jet because I'm talking about drawing on planes, and then maybe bad choices of what to use as my demo. Okay, so basically I've set up a couple things here that aren't normally on your toolbar that you'll see, but they're really easy to add. All you have to do is find them. Your best friend in this thing is going to be a 3-point arc, and if you click right here, it says pin to toolbar. You can just pin it and it'll show up there on the toolbar. It's a really, really nice way to do things. I like it a lot. I put the ones I normally use up there. Let's go ahead and add conic curve. Did not mean to do the sketch, I apologize. I'm using a touchpad. So if I go to conic curve and I go here and I go, hey, I want to add that to my pin. There we go. Look, we could make it a little bit shorter. Also, there are certain things in here, like I wouldn't put trim on there. Trim is another tool you're going to use a lot. Fillet's another tool you're going to use a lot, but trim, see how it's that T there? That means that it's got a keyboard shortcut. It's always best to learn your keyboard shortcut and leave the tools up there that you're going to need that aren't going to be associated with the shortcut. Unfortunately, L, which is line, is up there by nature, and then also so is a 2-point triangle, or rectangle. But as far as things go, we don't usually use the rectangle a whole lot. You can do what's called, say if you wanted to do a bounding box, right? You can use a rectangle, right? And I'd use that, and I'm going to select the plane, select a plane or planar face, see where it says that, and I am just going to go ahead and say that, here, let me escape a little bit. I wanted to make it, roughly 80 degrees, or 8 centimeters, right? So I would just click right there and make it, so here it says 79.94, so we'll just make it, if you know the cookie size that you want to make it, you can constrain it within these. So if it had to be 45 by, hit tab, and then you can do 80, hit enter. And the thing is, so what I did here, right, is I made a box, but this is the wrong kind. This is one that you can extrude from. What I like to do is when I do it, here I'll hit Control Z, right? I'll make another box here, right? And this is only if you need to constrain. Once you get good at eyeballing it, you don't really need to do this, but sometimes a little bit of, it helps a little bit. So 43 tab by 80. All right, and then what I would do is over here, these are what are known as these are what is known as construction lines. So watch as it turns into a little, excuse me, see how it did the dotted line? Now you can't extrude from it, but it does give you like a bounding barrier kind of thing. It helps with keeping your cutters to a certain size. All right, so now we're just gonna go ahead and trace this, and then we're gonna extrude it, and then we're going to make a cookie cutter. All right, so what we're gonna do first is, let's go ahead and get this thing traced up real quick. So most of our tools that we're going to need are right here. All right, we're going to start at the tail fin. All right, and I'm just using a regular lined. Oops, Control Z. The other thing you got to remember is it will change that setting over. So what I'd like to do is I'll just delete that. Delete this I apologize, I'm doing this off a trackpad as I said before. Let's go ahead and delete. And you know, I do these like in under 5 minutes, but instructing at the same time sometimes is not. It's not the same, but it's all good. So we're going to hit lines. We're going to make sure construction line is not selected, okay, because you want it to be a regular line. All right, and we're just going to make, and a lot of these corners are going to be rough. All right, but we are going to make them pretty with the fillet tool once we get done. All right, and then with that being done, you kind of look at the basic shape of things. That's usually what I do, and I say, is that something that's rounded? If it is, then I can work with that a little bit later. Okay, so with that being done, we're gonna go ahead and select our 3-point arc, and see, you got to just click that little box, and that tells it you want to connect. And then I just kind of go across here. And again, Lori is usually the one that does this, so I do apologize. She'll probably come back and let me know what I instructed wrong, but it'll work for what our purposes need to be. All right, as you can see, you can make these curves very, very, very subtle. I usually, all joking aside, I usually just 3-point arc the heck out of things, and I did not mean to do that. Stand by one moment. I accidentally clicked. Let's get back to the front, shall we? That's in the way, so let's go ahead and move the pan. Again, it won't go back to the tool unless you need it to. And then let's hit escape, get out of the sketch mode, and I just need to move this point over just a titch. Hopefully it does not cause too much heartache. It does not. Sometimes it'll throw the proportions all out of whack and things get ugly, but didn't do it that time, so lucky us. So then I will take this, and I'm sketching back over here, and you notice how I selected my sketch so that way it stays as one. And the nice thing is that thing could go over there because we don't need those extra tools anymore. We are just fine and dandy working on our little airplane here, or jet is probably a better thing to call it. All right, so I just slicked over to the conic curve, and because this is a little bit too much for a 3-point curve, it'll start looking like a circle at that point. So you want to here, why don't we pan over a little bit? See how it's kind of distorted right there? Don't worry, because once you hit over here, it brings the tool back. So we're going to do that close enough for this work. We're going to enter, and so we're going to go back to our 3-point. Click again, and it takes it out of there. It's a really easy tool. And we're just going to keep on going around, and there's probably a faster way to do this, but this is how I do it. Again, I love me some all right, we're going to use a straight on this one because that's pretty straight. All right, again, anything that we are doing here that's going to involve any, see there's some sharp edges in there that I won't like in the end, so what I will do is I will probably just end up taking it and end up taking it, and I'll show you what I do in a little bit. There's the fillet tool again is awesome. And you see right there, I've almost got that wing complete. There we go. Hit enter. All right, so we're going to keep on panning out. And if you find that these grids confuse things later, not the grids, but the boundary box, you can just have it deleted once you have the basic, once you have your canvas spread out to where it needs to be. Okay, so it doesn't have to stay in there by any means. I just left it in there. It usually doesn't bother me too much if I need to use it. But again, once you get to a certain point, you pretty much eyeball this stuff and you're pretty good to go, because you just kind of count the grid squares. All right, so we're going to go ahead and switch back to this, and then we are going to go here. We're going to bow it out just a titch. That's a metric titch, by the way. It's a technical term. I'm going to bring this here. Now we're going to you're going to see what happens when I join these two together, right? But before I do that, let's go ahead, let's try a conic curve on this. And again, oh, look at that. Enter. All right, so remember I told you could tell when it's done, when it's fully linked all together, right? When there is a pink background. Now it's hard to tell with this, so we're going to take away the canvas, okay? And look at that. That's our basic outline of the plane. Now there's some sharp edges in here and here that I don't like, so I'm going to bring the canvas back. All right, I'm going to try to match these up the best I can. Again, Laura usually does this, so this is the fillet tool, and what it does is it just rounds your edges, right? When you have little things like this, you can just you can right click and repeat fillet. Once you've done one tool thing, they like you to do the let's zoom in here. See, this thing's giving me grief, so we are going to delete that bounding box. Stop sketch, backspace. There we go. Now I can get to that, so now I can properly fillet this, right? And what it did was I had to select the plane again. And stop sketch. Sometimes you select the wrong area, and that's fine. You can just hit the stop sketch button and then hit it again. And see, I'm telling it that I want to work on the sketch, and now it'll let me. All right. Again, all this stuff, it takes practice. So we're going to go ahead and fillet. Maybe this edge doesn't want to be filleted. Yeah, it's definitely not wanting to be filleted. That does. So we're going to go with that. Most time I do not run into this issue. As you can see, now this one here, I want it a little softer, right? Enter. And we're going to over here, and then this edge right here, right, for sure. There we go. Everything's more or less filleted. You get the idea of how it works. We're going to go ahead and move on just for time's sake. We're going to go ahead and take away the, should only be one sketch, hopefully. Yeah, there's only one sketch, good. If I didn't do it correctly, then there would have been more than one sketch and things would have been weird. But it's all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually make this cookie cutter. We can go go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a bit. All right. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to do our friend offset, right? This keeps your walls even, okay? This keeps your constraints even. So that way, you'll see here in a moment, you won't get the weak walls and stuff like you do when you, I've seen people using the silhouette and carrying it over from software program to software program. This does everything for you. So you don't have to worry about any of the bad translations, if you will. All right, so we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to our friend for right now, the canvas. All right, and that's our airplane. All right, so we're going to hit O for offset, right? And we're going to hit the outside of this. And the first one I do is 6 millimeters. All right. The first part of 6 millimeter, the 6 millimeters is the handle, more or less, and then I do the blade. But for right now, we're going to hit enter. All right. So then, as you see, we have two totally closed areas here, right? We're going to hit O for offset again. And we're going to make this 0.8 because this is going to be your cutting blade. I don't do the extra cutter at the end. They don't stay well together. It's better just to have a single blade. It works really, really, really well. All of our stuff holds up ever since I got rid of that cutting edge, and it's thin enough to where the cutting edge really wouldn't have made a difference, but the wall is thick enough to be strong. All right, so we're going to hit enter. All right, so then we are going to come over here and we're going to do the actual extrusion part, right? Extrusion that actually makes sense, right, to what you guys are trying to do. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and under the create, there is E for extrude, okay? As I showed you before, we're going to hit the E button because we're going to learn the keyboard shortcuts. Now the blade, I always make 18 millimeters. Seems to work really well. See how the sketch disappeared? And see how this says, oh, look, your sketches are on. It's not really that. It's that some of the sketches are on, okay? So basically what we need to do is we need to re-highlight that. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to extrude the other part, the handle, and I always just go 3 millimeters. All right. So now what we have is a cookie cutter. All right. One more thing I like to do, because I guess this is a little fancy, and sometimes the way the lines are, they don't allow for it, and you'll get errors and stuff. And I'm still working those things out. I'm just going to delete these bounding boxes real quick. I like to fillet the back of it. There is now for this fillet. This is the fillet for the actual object, right? And for the 3D object. And what that does is that rounds the edges, and then when it prints really nice. Because sometimes when you have the nose too close to the print surface, or your nozzle too close to the print surface rather, it you can get a little bit of footing on it and stuff like that. And then on top of that, this actually uses less filament, and it looks nice, and it's got that really nice comfort grip. So again, so we're gonna go ahead and hit. We're gonna bounce off of that. We're gonna hit the F button because that's what fillet does. We will select this, right, and see how it does the entirety of it. I always keep it rolling ball. I do constant radius. I do all the defaults on this, and I try to do one. I like to do 1.5. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does, and it looks like it's going to work for this one. So what that does is it rounds out the corners all nice, right? So that way when you print it, it's going to look nice and pretty. And if you have your nozzle too close to the bed, it really won't be nearly as noticeable. And it gives it that comfort grip. You don't have any sharp edges or anything on the side that you're going to have physical contact with. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, and this is always the fun part. So what I do now is I'll hit the save button, right? And I will save it as demo jet. And we will hit save. And so now it's been saved. Well, we'll be in a second. If this, okay, good, didn't crash. I was gonna crash there for a second. That would have been embarrassing and also like a little bit on the frustrating side because we're almost done. So then you may ask yourself, well, how do I make this into an STL? Well, you have a little button up here. It's called Make. Okay. So then what you're going to do is you're going to select what you want to make. All right. See how it says body 1 down here? That means it didn't take the name. So the better part, the better practice, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, is let's go ahead and make the selection. Let's hit cancel and we'll hit make again. Okay. Hit make. And then we're just going to click up here. See, that's your object. That's your entire object. And see how it highlights it the same way, more or less? So basically, normally this will be checked. This will be 3D print utility, but we don't use 3D. I don't use 3D print utilities that they support. So I hit that. I hit OK. And then I will go ahead and you can do a preview mesh, which shows all the triangles. It looks kind of neat, but it's really unneeded. Give it a moment. Hopefully this doesn't crash it. See how it gives it all the triangles and everything that makes up the design, but always set to high, right? So that won't have any effect on the actual STL that it produces. And then we're going to hit OK. And we're going to hit Demo Jet. See demo plane right there? That was from another software program that was with Fusion360, but the screen recording software didn't show any of the menus, so it was a nice waste of about 45 minutes. All right, so we're going to hit save. All right, so with that being done, I don't know if this is going to show this, but we are going to go ahead and go over here to the download section, and we're going to look at Demo Jet. This is Windows 10. It'll show you your cookie cutter. And you could even manipulate it a little bit if I remember correctly. Yep, so you can take a look at it. Everything looks great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to close this out. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll get to them when I can. Got some busy stuff heading up at work here soon, so it might take me a little while. Also, I will put a link to my the ad-free calculator that I use that calculates imperial to metric for those of us in the U.S. And also a link to the keyboard shortcuts, so that way it'll help you get used to your program. Again, thank you for your patience. I do apologize this took so long to make. And again, if you're watching this for production value, I'm sorry I might have wasted your time. But hopefully it's informative. Kind of shows you around the tools a little bit. Again, play around with it. See how it does. There's lots of tutorials out there. I will try to link what tutorials I use to get a good foundation or a decent foundation on how to use Fusion in the description below as well. And everyone have a wonderful day and a wonderful holiday season. Thank you.